The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
You want to get high?
And I'm Thomas Hunt with the World Crypto Network. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. Fidelity Bitcoin investors rise by 730% despite market turmoil. The total number of investments has dropped significantly, but the size of the fund has remained the same for the second year. However, the number of investors into Fidelity's Bitcoin fund has increased significantly. It's increased from around 83 to 689, representing a 730% increase in Bitcoin investors. Dan Eve, I thought crypto was dead. How could there be new investors into the Fidelity Fund? It's almost like people are using this downtime as an advantage to buy some cheap Bitcoin.
Maybe they're buying the dip, right? That's the main thing. It's obviously we're a bit away from all-time high of what 67K. So now is the time to actually be slowly dipping in, right? If you've been a bit unsure about buying into Bitcoin, you don't, you're wise and you don't want to buy in when it's at all-time high. Now we're seeing, I think a lot more banks, a lot more other mainstream kind of companies that are actually buying into Bitcoin and allowing their customers to buy into it. So especially if they're opening up to 401ks and pensions and things. They did mention in this article, they're saying, well, wouldn't it be good if there was a Bitcoin ETF? And I thought there was a Bitcoin ETF, but it's a futures, right? It's not a spot, so they must be
Yeah, there's
referring
no
to.
spot ETF still. It's just futures, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think ultimately it's good that it's a sign that the retail investors are interested. They want to do a bit of long-term holding. I wonder about if there's any limitations, right? If the pension the pension companies or the 401k companies that are like Fidelity are allowing it, whether they're limiting it to saying like, right, only 10% of your portfolio can be in Bitcoin to try and protect their customers. But ultimately opening it up to the wider world it's a I think it's a positive thing, and buying the dip.
I saw a great tweet recently where they said, I only invest in safe companies like Amazon.com. And then they showed Amazon going down 25%.
Or
So,
Netflix. Oh,
oh, so yes, it's a bad time for all of the markets. And this has also been a bad time for Bitcoin and crypto markets. I don't know if it's going to go down more. I don't know if it's going to go up. But I do know what these people are doing is what smart money does. You buy when there's blood in the water. You buy when there's fear in the streets. When everyone's feeling good, when everyone thinks it goes up forever, that's the hardest thing you have to do, and that's when you have to sell. If you want to try to time these cycles, if you have a job, if you have some money saved up, and you don't have to time these cycles, you believe in Bitcoin long term, you can just hold your Bitcoin, and if it works itself out, goes back up, everything was fine. I saw a really great Michael Saylor tweet. I'm not a great big fan of his, but he said something that I think is important. He said, Bitcoin's the only investment material, the only thing in the world where when demand goes up, supply does not go up. It's an amazing kind of good where
yeah.
everyone in the world could want it, everyone wants to pay for it. Naturally, in the any other market, you would pump out more. You would make more of whatever it is, even if you have to set up huge factory farms and pump out chickens in horrible environments. You would make more chickens. But with Bitcoin, you can't make more Bitcoin. So I don't know where we go with this thing. Obviously, we've seen the stock markets recover. Bitcoin has not followed the stock markets back up yet, but it's only been a few days. We'll have to see how the wider market does after the Fed announcement.
But that's a good point about really stocks. You don't make more stock, right? Like they're actually, so Bitcoin is quite similar. It's in fact, it does inflate slightly, and it obviously very gradually, and there's going to be a halvening soon. But it is more comparable to, say, stocks, not like raw material, right? Where you mine more gold or you mine more of X or Y. So it is kind of similar to stocks in that way, in that, unless you kind of dilute the supply, in which case the
Unless we
price
could get
goes.
us one of those asteroids full of gold, bring
Oh
it back to
yeah.
the Earth and mine it. I keep looking for an asteroid full of Bitcoin, and I just can't find one.
All those nebulas like that are made of alcohol, like pure ethanol nebulas, man. Like, yeah, drag one of those back to the earth. But it's a good time. Everyone talks about the dollar cost averaging, and a good time to be dollar cost averaging is when Bitcoin's like 60% down from all time highs, because you know that it's going to be back up, and you've got a long way to go before it reaches back up to its all time high. You just need to, just adjust your time preference briefly, and it's a good way to ease in. We're what, 60% down from all-time high, so starting to dollar cost average and slowly buy into it via your pension, your 401k, or just generally kind of slow buying, using whatever app you can. Then yeah, I think it's a good way, but obviously never buy more than you can afford to lose.
And don't be like my friend who was dollar cost averaging and she was buying at the top and then Bitcoin went down too much and she stopped buying.
Stopped.
You
Ah,
have to keep buying. Like the dollar cost average doesn't work out if you only buy when it's expensive or whatever. You have to average it out so that you get that average number. You really got to focus on that. So let's move on to the exit question. Everyone's favorite question. Dan, I'm sure you're ready for this. The price of Bitcoin this time next week, higher or lower?
Oh, I think we still haven't got over the immediate effect of the Terra Luna sort of stable coin crash, and all the FUD about the extreme regulation that's going to be coming this way. So I think there's going to be a little further ripple. We'll probably see Bitcoin a bit lower, but yeah, I don't have Triangle or anything to go on, or I'm not as omnipotent as and omniscient as the Magic 8 Ball, so I don't profess to know what the price is going to do. But I do think it may go down a little bit.
Well, I'm impressed with the stock market recovery. The Fed news sounds good, and I think they're going to turn this thing around. So I'm going to go with higher. I'm on a vacation here. I'm in Paris, but I have purchased a small mini Magic 8 Ball. Yes, that's right. This is the world's smallest Bitcoin predicting device, but it's still incredibly powerful. This is more powerful than all the triangles and all the lines and all the charts. It's also very difficult to read, but fortunately I have a flashlight. So here we go. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? We're shaking the world's smallest Magic 8 Ball, and it says maybe. Maybe from the
Ooh,
ball.
sitting on the
That's
fence
why
there.
you're the ball. Like cover your own ass, ball. Your first
Commit.
time on the show and you pull out a
Jeez.
maybe. I love it. I love it, ball. Like you're the champ. Anyway, let's keep moving. Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2. This eclipse-like event is why Bitcoin could reach $100,000 by next year, says forecaster who has made prescient calls. Well, what kind of an event? It must be obviously Magic 8 Ball related, but let's go down and see. Apparently, he's talking about the halvening. Yes, in 2024, Bitcoin is expected to halve again. And yes, it is eclipse-like because it happens whether we like it or not. The supply of Bitcoin will go down around 2024, depending on the block, when we hit the right block. This keeps happening to Bitcoin. It's a deflationary supply. So like Michael Saylor was saying earlier, Bitcoin doesn't increase its supply when it's more popular. Actually, it keeps decreasing its supply forever, no matter what, it's in the code. So yes, this eclipse-like event could save us. It looks good. Of course, it kind of feels desperate that we're down to like only the halvening can save us. But what do you think, Dan? Can the halvening save us?
Oh hell yeah! It's kind of it's so far there's been three halvenings, and it's very clear that there's an effect of halvening, right? You're reducing the supply, the miners aren't dumping as much on the market. It goes from what 6.25 Bitcoin per block to 3.125, and and the effect on the rest of the market with Bitcoin dropping to 29, 28K, whatever it is now. Try not to look at the price, even though we try and predict it. But the hash rate still actually grows, day by day. I mean, it's on 205 exahashes right now, so it's really only about 15%, 20% down from all-time high. And so the miners keep on mining, and that's the main thing, is that the security of the network keeps on growing even stronger, even though the price sort of tottles about. Some people will predict crazy stuff. We've seen less of these $1 million Bitcoin predictions, because we're in a semi bear, on the run up to the next on the next halvening. But the main thing is, we said, as you said in the last around the last article, you can't just mine more Bitcoin, right? There's only 6.25 per block. And there's an difficulty adjustment every 2 weeks. So if suddenly a load of hash rate hit the market and we went up to 500 exahashes, then the difficulty would adjust. So you'd only have a very brief, a brief moment where you'd mine, say, an average of more than, one block every 10 minutes. But the difficulty would adjust. It's on, I think, something crazy now, 29 trillion, 29, which is pretty much, I believe, at all-time high. The 31.25 trillion difficulty, and it's now 29.89. So as the hash rate increases, the difficulty increases, and that keeps the kind of block times pretty stable at one block every roughly 10 minutes. So I think that the 100K prediction it's definitely going to happen. It's just a case of when. And it would be cool if it's before the next halvening, because that means if it hits 100K before the next halvening, then after the next halvening, it's going to be another mental price that we can't even predict right now, other than crazy people who are like $7 trillion.
What's amazing about the halvening structure is how obvious it's been since the beginning of Bitcoin. Since the beginning of Bitcoin, you could look at it, you could say, wow, the way this is designed to go down every time, Bitcoin's going to be more valuable. Especially if you're looking like things, you're talking 6.25, you're talking 3.12, excuse me. We're starting to get to the point where pretty soon, not even a whole Bitcoin will be made every 10 minutes by the miners. And what's fun about this is we always go through the same kind of cycle. First, they say, there's not going to be a halvening effect. Everyone knows about it. Everyone knows it's going down. We don't care. Then they get closer and they're like, there might be a halvening effect. There's a lot less Bitcoin out here. And the miners start to notice that they're making less Bitcoin, and the exchanges find it harder and harder to buy Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor and maybe even Naive Bukali have trouble buying more Bitcoin for their coffers. And it keeps going down. So it seems like really obvious that Bitcoin would be worth a lot of money if it takes off, because of this brilliant deflationary halvening structure that we keep going through. So I enjoy that the media has found this. I think Eclipse is pretty good because it's a regular thing that happens, but still I think they're kind of saying I don't know if the halvening is going to happen, or I don't know if it's going to have a big enough effect. It's going to. It's psychological, and then at the end of the day, it's real. It affects the market with scarcity. If you're an exchange and you're used to buying 1,000 Bitcoin a week for your exchange, and you can't get them, and you have to go to all your side deals, and you got to talk to miners directly, it's going to affect the market. It's going to make you want to pay more. Yes, I think the halvening will save us, but I think it's sad that we're already at this point. Just a few months ago, crypto and Bitcoin were on top of the world, completely unbeatable. 60,000 was a road bump on the way to 120K. Ethereum was going to 10K. Where'd all those people go? Was there something wrong with their magic 8 balls?
There weren't enough laser eyes.
Triangles? Yeah, the laser eyes.
They needed more laser eyes. So it's 707 days to the next halvening. And you made a really good point, I haven't thought about before. Now, when is the point that there will be less than one Bitcoin mined per block? And it's actually, I think, 2032. So in 2024, it will be 3.25. In 2028, it will be 1.56. And in 2020, So 2032, it'll be 0.78 Bitcoin per block, and that's going to be pretty momentous. Like when it went from 50 Bitcoin per block, right from the start in 2009, down to 0.78. So that's a real big drop, and I think each halvening is just going to get more and more exciting along the way.
Well, we all know how hard it is to even get hold of one Bitcoin. And like Dan said, I
Keeps getting
remember,
harder.
and even harder every time. I remember when the miners were getting 50 Bitcoin, like Stan's saying, and you're like, gosh, I could get one, but they have 50. And every 10 minutes, just cranking them out. But yes, 25, 12 and a half, 6 and a quarter, 3.12. We are on our way down. So once again, if you can manage to get your hands on one Bitcoin or maybe a zero point 0.1 Bitcoin or a 0.01 and just hold it and see how it goes. Like Dan's saying, in 10 years, which is a long time, but a lot of people bought Tesla 10 years ago and they did really well. Anybody that bought Amazon's still way up. This kind of long-term value investing in something that you think is valuable could work out for you. But again, don't invest more than you can afford to lose and all those kind of things. And don't take it too seriously. But let's see. Exit question for this. I don't know. You think the halvening will happen, right, Dan? This is pretty much guaranteed. Will it have the effect that this researcher is claiming? Will we see 100K by next year in advance of the halvening or after the halvening?
Oh, I don't know. That's too hard to predict because it's the all-time high is just after, like, really within a couple of years of the halvening, and in 2017 it reached 20, well, the halvening was, the previous halvening was 2016, right? So it took, within 2 years it had reached the all-time high. So I don't know. I'm a bit bearish on whether we'll reach 100K and another all-time high before the next halvening. But it's almost, the main thing is that it's almost guaranteed, right? The likelihood of the code changing and there not being a halvening in 2024 is so insanely, like, almost infinitesimally small. So maybe whether it reaches 100K before the halvening or not, I don't know. But I think that it's an almost dead sitter that it will reach 100K after the next halvening.
Well, I'm a bull and I'm bullish, so I'm going to agree with this guy. I think it's going to reach 100K before the next halvening because I think things are different now. What's different now is we have the media with us. We have crypto NBC reporting on it every day. We have everybody who got so excited reporting about the crypto winter and the price going down. And all of those people at some point have no choice but to learn about Bitcoin, to learn about what it actually is and how it actually works. And when they learn about this halvening structure and how it's a deflationary system that goes down by half every 4 years on average, they're going to freak out and they're going to lose their minds and they're going to start to understand what the early Bitcoiners were talking about when they said, hey, this Bitcoin thing could be really valuable in the future. I think it's going to drive the price up before the halvening. Obviously, we'll probably have a downturn after a halvening, buy the rumors, sell the news. And then again, after the halvenings, when it really happens, the miners start holding on to more coins. The exchanges find it harder to buy coins. Michael Saylor can't make his 1,000 coin buy or whatever the guy makes these days. I think it's going to happen. I think we're en route for it. I think it's funny that the media is calling it an eclipse and that it's like a rare event. When we know it's a lot more like Leap Day. It's going to happen every, Leap Day is every couple of years, but every 4 years, like the Olympics, whether you like it or not. So I'm all in on the halvening. And of course, we'll have another halvening party and it's going to be great. You can check out our previous halvening parties right here on the World Crypto Network. Halving is the technical term for it. They called it halving, but we're Bitcoin, we're internet people. So the word halvening caught on and is now more popular because the halving is what's happening, but the halvening is the event when the halving happens, if that makes any sense.
Simple, right?
Very easy. It's like GNU's not Linux. GNU's not Linux because it's a self-defining acronym. It's GNU. But that's what computer geeks like, and this is our internet. So, hey, check out WCN Clips. We fixed the link in the description below. You can also just Google WCN Clips and subscribe to get clips of this show. We have 7 subscribers. Thanks to the 7 new subscribers for pushing that subscribe button. Check out WCN Clips and send these clips around. These are good clips of the show. They're shorter than the show, and they could get people interested in the show. It's also a great time to give us a thumbs up down below, say hello in the chat, and let's get this party started. Moving on to issue 3, bipartisan bill enshrining Bitcoin, Ether, that must be Ethereum, as commodities due in June. A alliance of Republicans and Democrats with Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York and a Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming, I think, will begin unveiling legislation in June that will create a comprehensive baseline for cryptocurrency regulation in the United States. Yes, currently Bitcoin is seen as a currency, or what is it? It's not a currency, it's taxed all the time. I think making it a commodity would change that. Dan, is this good for Bitcoin? These 2 senators attempting to regulate it and declare it as a commodity?
I think it's good for American politics that there's something bipartisan going along, because it's very polarized, isn't it, American politics? But whether it's a commodity is, I don't know. I see that almost as a bit of a negative thing, because if it's a commodity, then there's more control over it from the government, right? If it's a currency, it's almost like it's less controllable, whereas a commodity there's more control of it over it, generally more regulation. From a tax perspective as well, like obviously it's a bit more negative. I just think that I know the term, it's a cryptocurrency, right? It's meant to be cash. It's not meant to be a commodity. So I think it should always be considered as a currency. It was made to be used as a currency and to potentially eventually replace currencies, but generally quite positive that that politicians are talking about it in a positive way, right? It's not like this is Bitcoin thing and we're going to ban it. You know, again, it's this whole situation where although we don't want regulation, but it lends credence to the fact that people aren't just trying to ban it when they're trying to actually allow people to interact with it, to use Bitcoin, to have Bitcoin. Then it shows that it's something that can be trusted even by the government, even if you don't trust the government. But there's always going to be people that trust the government, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, the government says that Bitcoin isn't actually too bad. It's an asset that we can have. They're not banning it. They're not banning the mining of it. So although it's not a fantastic situation that it's being treated as a commodity rather than a currency, it's generally, I think, positive for Bitcoin.
I'd agree. I think, yes, it's unfortunate that they're saying it's a commodity, not a currency. We've seen the same thing happen in Portugal, where at least the first vote to tax cryptocurrency failed. So that was interesting. But I agree with you. It's great that they're not talking about banning it and blocking it. These 2 senators want to work with Bitcoin and Ethereum and cryptocurrency, and they don't want to wipe it out. So once again, they're seeing more to gain from having these things in your country, having businesses that work with cryptocurrency, than trying to get rid of it entirely. So it's a positive step, but it might be kind of a muddled step. Once again, all of this will come true when the other currencies try to match up against Bitcoin, and they can't. It's going to take a long time for people to have to make those comparisons, for them to be in situations where they need a free currency that you can use to buy anything, not a limited currency that can only buy some things. And I think we're going to get to that point, and more people are going to realize when you want to buy anything, you use this internet money. When you want to buy what Caesar's got or what the government's given you, you use the government money. But Bitcoin has a lot more to go. Like you said, Dan, it's a very partisan environment here in the United States. Force prediction. Will this bill pass? Will it be signed by the president?
I think it's got a chance of it, right? Anything that is partisan has got more chance of being signed than something that's a lot more polarized. So if you've got like both a Republican and a Democrat both working on their own parties, then I think it's got a lot more chance of going through than if you had, just a couple of Republicans or just a couple of Democrats trying to push it through, because then you'll see the opposition kind of opposing them for whatever, general reason that they want to disagree on. But any cooperation is a good thing. Um, and yeah, I think it is much more likely to go through because of the fact that they're working together.
Well, I'd agree. Hardly anything's happening in Congress anymore. They're definitely going to need more than two senators to get on board with this. But if they do, this could be kind of a positive regulation for a new industry, trying to encourage it, not to kill it. Republicans are in favor of business. Democrats are in favor of unions and getting people's jobs. Maybe this will work together and they'll come together to not chase cryptocurrency out of this country, as we've seen with China and others. I'm I don't know. I'm gonna go like maybe 7 out of 10. I don't know, maybe 5 out of 10. It's very hard to believe Congress could get anything done in the United States. It's so bad over here. But
Well, there's still a lot of there's still a lot of hatred for Bitcoin because of the general, the FUD of the day, right? The thing of the FUD of the day for Bitcoin is the environmental impact. We're still seeing all those articles. So anyone that's very environmentally focused, they're probably not gonna vote for Bitcoin and even Ethereum right now because something that benefits Ethereum as well because they're still mining, right? It's not proof of stake yet. So that it's still going to be against the policies that people are pushing. How can you push a Green Deal and also vote for regulation of Bitcoin unless it comes in some sort of package where you say that Bitcoin can only be mined green or putting other restrictions in place. So yeah, I think there's still you're right. There's going to be a lot of opposition on both sides, and probably from the greenies.
that sounds just like new people to Bitcoin. They come in one day and they're like, they want to change the mining algorithm. They want to change it to proof of stake. They've got all these ideas. They're here to fix Bitcoin. You've been missing them and they're here to help. Yeah, I agree, Dan. The green aspect of it, even though we hear, and if you've been watching the show, you know that it's a joke. You know that it uses less power than PlayStation 2s that are left on. You know it uses less power than Christmas lights. You know it has a benefit to society. And you also know that the thing about Bitcoin is it's with everything else like banks and such, it's hard to calculate how much power they use. With Bitcoin, it's really easy. You just multiply this number by that number. You can't just multiply it off years into the future like they do, though, because of technology. So yes, I think Bitcoin will get more greener, but this may be a problem for Congress and they might not be able to pass this bill. And as much as I like her on some issues, I can hear Elizabeth Warren screaming about it already. And she has a very shrill voice. So she's very strong, though. She's a good senator. She means well. Moving on to issue 4, a Bored Ape lawsuit. Yes, actor Seth Green, star of the Austin Powers movies, Dr. Evil's son, had a great plan. He had some NFTs and he was going to make an animated TV show. As some of you know, the new Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs allow you to actually own the character that you purchase and create derivative works with that character. Seth Green owned a Bored Ape Yacht Club character and had written an entire sitcom around this and other characters. This is where it gets fishy. We have to kind of be cruel to Seth here. He had bad OPSEC. Obviously, this is a very valuable Bored Ape that he spent a lot of time on, but apparently he just kept it on his normal computer. And he just browsed around the internet clicking on things, and he clicked on the wrong thing. He went to a website that was a copy of another website. He pushed some buttons on there, and the hackers stole his Bored Ape, the one he was gonna make the TV show about. The Bored Ape has since been resold to another person, not a hacker, not a criminal, as far as we know. And they refuse to give it back to Seth, although they might do it for money. We'll have to see how the story works out. But what's really interesting now is that Seth Green is going, it seems like, he's going to attempt to sue them to get his NFT back, which we all know isn't going to work, isn't going to establish any good precedents for NFTs. The whole point is, if you own it, you own it. And in the case of the Bored Ape Yacht Club and some other NFTs, they've put the license with the NFT. So if you own the NFT, you own the license. Doesn't matter what you had planned. Maybe he should buy a different ape that looks similar. Dan, Eve, what do you think about Seth Green and this very interesting potential NFT lawsuit?
Well, it's definitely another point where you've got to reflect and think about how much you're connecting with other sites, like, using your NFT, because there's some really cool ideas that come with NFTs, like the ability to use it as a ticket. So you've seen loads of sites pop up where you can, if you have an NFT, certainly like something like Bored Ape Yacht Club, because they know that there's going to be, high net worth individuals that have these. So you're suddenly in this new club, you're in this new section of the website, you get these new features, and so people are probably quite open to using their NFT, their Bored Ape, to get them into these kind of extra special, VIP sort of areas. But of course, you're not just perhaps signing a message to show you've got the NFT. You could be literally signing it away, and that's what he did. He got fished, right? And it's pretty savage, but it happens to the best of us. I remember one of the first times. I'm not going to lie, the My Ether wallet. I think when it was back in the day when there was the pimp with the file, right, the JSON file, I think it was, and luckily I had almost nothing on there. But I uploaded it to a site that I thought was My Ether wallet, but it was just like a real very clever close version that was like My Ether and then capital I's, right, that looked like L's or something like that. It's crazy. But the fact is that they've put these rights on the NFT, and so it doesn't sit with the true owner of it, even if it got stolen from you. What's interesting is the guy that bought it for 200K. How do you prove that he wasn't the original scammer? That's a kind of a difficult thing to, because he could have just like scammed it out. He could have built that site and then just gave it to himself because he had 200 ether, $200,000 worth of ether, and just faked a transaction, something not faked a transaction, but pretended that he'd bought it off someone and then gained this Bored Ape Yacht Club, and then used some sort of mixer or whatever in order to be able to funnel his Ethereum out, and he keeps the Bored Ape, right? And then he uses it and says, well, I actually bought it from someone, so you can't go after me for it. I think in the UK the property rights are slightly different. So like if you bought, like, I don't know, a stolen car or something from someone, you'd end up losing that car because it would be returned to the rightful person. So I'm not sure, it's obviously different anywhere in the world, but it sounds like he's put his foot in it by trying to say that he can legally go after this guy, the person who stole it originally, and that it's rightfully his. I very much doubt it's going to go anywhere. I think he's not made a good case for himself by laying it out on the line. Maybe the best thing he could have done was just use the publicity from losing his Bored Ape, and then buy another cheaper ape and then base it around that. And then that's probably the better way of doing it. Maybe he's even doing this sort of lawsuit to get more publicity, and he already has one, and then he's just going to rewrite it, and then that would be the kind of clever thing. Maybe he's going to try and use like the Streisand effect to his own benefit rather than to his own detriment. But ultimately, this is the cool thing about NFTs. They're your ticket everywhere to these certain sites, but you just got to be really careful. You can't be fished, and OPSEC is a really it's something that you should be thinking of all the time, especially if you are someone who dabbles in like DeFi and stuff like that. It's really easy to set up a fake site, to think you're signing away your dollars into some really high-paying APY DeFi kind of protocol, and then something happens and you've signed it to a fake site or something. So you've just got to be really aware of what you're doing with your money, right? It's almost like the equivalent of, I don't know, having like 100 grand in your wallet and being at a bar and being like, yeah, I'm just here's my 100 grand, and like not expecting for someone to try and mug you or something. I don't know. It's it's definitely a wake-up call that you can have something of such high value stolen from you so easily.
I like the idea that he could be gaslighting all of us, that this is just advertising for his TV show. I think that's a good idea, Dan. We're gonna have to look at that more. Once again, with the technical aspects, he doesn't have to be very technical to make sure that this doesn't happen to him. Really, all he'd have to do is buy 2 laptops. You put your Bored Ape and your fancy NFTs you're going to make your TV show about on your special laptop, and then you close it, and you put it in your safe, and you never turn it on again. And that's it. You've just locked down your ape. There's no way it can be accidentally stolen. It'll be there on that computer. There's more advanced ways to do this. Certainly, you could put it in a Trezor wallet or something like that. But let's say Seth Green doesn't know about any of that. At the very least, you could say, hey, Seth, here's your NFT laptop that you only use to store NFTs on. You never browse any of your dirty websites on this laptop. Bitcoin users used to do this back in the day. They'd take their older laptop, they'd air gap it, they'd separate it from the network. They'd even do crazy things like taking out the Wi-Fi card physically, burning out the network card port, stuff like that, trying to make it really safe and secure. And then they'd send Bitcoin in and never do anything with it. If they needed to send the Bitcoin out, they could sign the transaction, maybe put it on a USB stick, put the USB stick on your other laptop, upload the transaction. Your original laptop is safe. So he could have been safe. I like the idea, though, that he could be phishing us all and they could sign the new, get a new ape in there. But yes, he stuck his foot in the mouth when he did this ridiculous idea that he could sue someone and reverse the blockchain. Because the problem with that, we all know as Bitcoin and crypto people, when the judge puts down his or her hammer and says, return that ape to Seth Green, nothing happens, right? Unless they know who this guy is, unless they can get him physically in whatever country in the entire world he could be in. And like Dan said, we don't even know if he's the scammer. He very well could be, or she, or them, or it, or whatever. And yes, it's just not going to work. It's a bad idea. I think in Seth's defense, I think he was kind of desperate. He couldn't seem to figure out who had the ape now, so he couldn't get in touch with them directly. It sounds like the media's helped him out. The people who do have it want to be contacted. I'm sure they want to say something like, give us twice as much or give us 5 times as much. And I don't know if it's worth it, if that's worth that to Seth Green, but it's an interesting story. We'll have to see how it turns out. And again, it's unfortunate, but it is kind of cosmically funny that the first time someone would try to do a big NFT TV show, their NFT star, a very expensive star, the ape, gets stolen. It's almost too good, like Dan said. So we'll have to see if it turns out true or not.
And how many hops, like with that, right? So that's considered it's a clean ape by the law, right? The person who owns it now, even though it got stolen, so it went to one address.
Well, they said that it wasn't flagged on OpenSea when the guy bought it, so he feels he's bought a legitimate thing. But now I think that the story's gone out. I think OpenSea would have flagged it. Now the flagging doesn't affect anything. If it has a flag, it says this ape may be stolen. You could just shrug your shoulders and buy that ape anyway, right? You don't have to respect this. The community, they keep trying to help people when they lose all of their apes or all of their NFTs. But as we know with Bitcoin and everything else, there's no one to bail you out. It's nice of the community to try to do this. Like, it's admirable. I respect it. I just don't think it's going to work at all. But they're trying it anyway.
The value of that then must go up significantly now, right? Because it's now it's like one of the more famous Bored Apes. It's like, it's a dirty money Bored Ape. So if anything, the guy who's got it, or girl who's got it now, it must be laughing, because they're right. My Bored Ape has been all through the media. There's potentially going to be a court case about it, which he's almost certainly going to lose. So now this Bored Ape specifically is infamous. So yeah, it's sad to see someone sign away like their Bored Ape to a phishing scam or whatever. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. What would be hilarious is if the person who owns it, I keep on saying guy, that's sexist. It could be a girl or an it or a zim or a zer. Who knows? It's 2022. But whoever it is now creates their own comedy about it, like before Seth Green does. Aha, sucker.
That would be great. They could put it right onto YouTube. And for all we know, it's an AI that's stolen it. And the AI could make his own show as well. But yes, it's a great story. We'll have to see how it turns out. And again, it all could have been avoided if Seth Green had a decent IT guy and a budget to buy a second laptop. He owns a $200,000 NFT. Very clearly, he could buy a $2,000 computer. It's very unfortunate. I hope that Seth and The Rock and whoever else is listening, Paris Hilton, all of them will buy a second computer to put their stuff, and maybe even a better solution. I'm not saying there's not better solutions out there, but just as a simple technical person, never use your NFT computer on the internet. You'll get phished like Seth Green, like the rest of us. Everyone's clicked on a bad link every once in a while. But this was a particularly disastrous bad link. All right, Dan, exit question. Predict the future. Will Seth get his ape back? Will the show go on?
Oh, well, there's two parts to that. So I think part one, he's not going to get his ape back. But part two, if he's sensible, he'll use this, Streisand effect and failing in court in order to be able to, to buy another Bored Ape and then to kind of morph the show or, change the show to be more focused around his new Bored Ape rather than his old one.
See, I see Seth as an artist here. So I think that the questions are connected. If he gets his ape back, he does the show. If he doesn't get his ape back, I think he might torpedo the show. I think he might have to change the whole direction, everything he's thinking about. I haven't seen the ape yet. The media hasn't been telling us the number that I know of. I've heard it described as a sullen, sad-looking ape with a halo on his head. Sounds like a great character. I could see where Seth could use that to draw a lot of stories. And again, I could see how if you can't use that character, if you can't tell the story that you wanted to tell, F it. Cancel the show. Forget it. Out of here. Now, on the other side, how much is it worth to Seth Green? It was
$1 million.
400. $1 million. Well, we'll have to see. I imagine that's what the guy who owns it now, or the gal who owns it now, is saying. She's like, pwn up, baby evil. So we'll see how it goes. Best of luck to Seth Green and all the NFT people out there. And I'm interested in the show. I would check out the first episode of the show. I'm curious to see how it go. But like Dan said, with the Streisand effect now, it's even more exciting. We've reached the end of the show. Dan, do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
Well, I still think so. My prediction from last week was that Bitcoin, I can't remember the exact price, but it was going to be like 27,346 or something. And I think that we've still got a little bit to go on this downturn. So I'm still sticking with that prediction. I'm adjusting my time preference for the negativity rather than the positivity. So, but obviously, eventually only up. Well, not only up, but eventually up.
On a long enough timeline, the price of Bitcoin does seem to go up. And my story of the week this week is that I'm on vacation. I'm in Europe. I'm in Paris. And if you check out the Mad Bitcoin's Twitter account, there's the Mona Lisa right there. It's just full of great images of art and other things that I'm seeing in Europe. Maybe too many images, driving some people crazy. But if you're interested in some great, images and stuff of my travels, I'll be sharing them on Mad Bitcoins. This is Mad Tour number 6, but my graphic's not there. But thanks to Philippe for making the graphic, and thanks for everybody for checking out my tweets and enjoying some exciting museum photos. I got to go to the Louvre today, and it's been great to be traveling again. Still a little uncertain out there. We could all get struck with the COVID at any time, unfortunately, but hopefully there's less of it now than there used to be, and people can get back to traveling and doing the things that they used to do. So thanks again to everybody for joining us. Give us a thumbs up down below. Say hi in the comments. Hello, chat. I'll check out the chat later. But thanks so much, and until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.